So I watched The House on Haunted Hill, which is a 1959 horror movie starring Vincent Price. You'll know him from being in every horror film and from doing the voiceover on Thriller. The movie's really weird, and it's so weird that I just want to share it. This movie's in the public domain, so if you want to watch it, I think it's actually on the movie's Wikipedia page. So you can just go on Wikipedia and watch this movie. The movie opens and we've got a floating head. He's one of the characters who's in the film, but we just get a floating head in the black void. And he's like, I'm scared of ghosts, I don't like them, my sister's dead. Or something like that. He's talking about how his sister got murdered and someone else got murdered in this haunted house. And then we get a floating head voiceover of Vincent Price, and he's like, I've rented this haunted house. I'm gonna host a party. It's gonna be really spooky. I'm gonna give anyone who can last the whole party $10,000. And this is in 1959, so that might actually be a useful amount of money. The amount of money you're willing to stay in the murder house for. There's 7 main characters in the film. We got Vincent Price. He's an eccentric millionaire who wants people to stay in the murder house. We've got Vincent Price's wife. She hates Vincent Price. They hate each other. They want to murder each other. She wants his money. He just hates her because he's an arsehole and he wants to kill her. And then we got the 5 guests. There's a young lady called like Nora or something. I've forgotten all the characters' names. There's Nora and Lance. I know their names. The rest of them I've got no idea. Nora's like a young lady who works for one of Vincent Price's companies, and she got invited for some reason. None of the characters actually know Vincent Price. He just invited them because he's a weird dude. There's Lance, who is a pilot. The reasoning for inviting him was that we want to see how a wide cross-section of people react to being in a spooky haunted house. So he's meant to be really brave because he flies planes. There is the guy who did the voiceover at the start, whose sister got murdered in this house. He is terrified of the house. He has come back for some reason. The movie hints that he's not there for money. Like, maybe he wants some closure or something. The entire film, it seems like he really does not want to be there, and he is terrified. There is a doctor who's he's like a psychologist, which is quite useful because people keep getting injured and freaking out. So he's useful to have there. And then the last woman, doesn't matter, she never does anything. She's always in the house. She just wants people to make her drinks, and then she's not going to do anything. Let's never talk about her again. So they all go into the spooky house, and immediately the chandelier almost murders Nora and Lance, but they get out of the way. And they're like, oh, we're getting spooked already. Vincent Price and his wife have a bit of back and forth. He's got like a recurring thing in the movie where he like says things were her idea. So he's like, you're the one who wanted to have a spooky house party. And she's like, yeah, but I don't really want to go and meet everyone. For the whole film, it just seems like all these things are his idea, but he's like saying they were her idea for some reason. It's really weird. They talk about trying to murder each other, and then he goes down to meet everyone. And he's like, hey everyone, welcome to my spooky house. They do a tour of the house. Lance and Nora leave everyone else and they're like left in the cellar, and they're talking about how Vincent Price is a dodgy, creepy dude, which he totally is. Lance goes into a room, then the door locks on its own and he is knocked unconscious. Meanwhile, Nora is trapped outside the room. She's like, oh, the door's locked. And then she sees a creepy ghost. A ghost floats out of another room and then retreats back into the room and is gone. And she is quite rightfully freaked out. She runs upstairs. She's like, hey everyone, Lance is stuck in this room. I saw a ghost. And they're all like, oh, we better do something. They come down. Lance has got a wound on his head. Lance and Nora decide, we'll go back to the cellar. When they split up to look around the cellar, Nora sees the same ghost who's doing this. And then they float past her as if on like a skateboard that someone is pulling. So she's like even more freaked out now. And she runs out of the cellar. Lance is like, hey, why'd you keep seeing ghosts? So at this point in the movie, we have seen 2 ghosts. So the implication is that the house is actually haunted and it's full of ghosts. When they go back upstairs, Vincent Price is like, oh, I forgot to introduce you to the caretakers of the house. Is the creepy ghost that they just saw is one of the caretakers of the house. She just looks like that at all times, and she floats about. I mean, I suppose if I could float about, I just would, but it's not a normal thing. I didn't even mention, in the cellar, there is just a big vat of acid that people keep dissolving bodies in. Like, there are meant to have been like 7 murders in this house, and they dissolve the bodies in the acid in the cellar, and they just leave the acid there. Whenever someone new buys the house, they're just like, oh yeah, the old acid pit. We don't need to get the renovators in for that, just leave it. For the whole film, in like the living room, there have been just some tiny coffins on a table, and for half the film, doesn't tell you what they are. Everyone just comes in, tiny coffins on the table. This is fine, just a regular house with tiny coffins. At this point in the film, Vincent Price says, I've got you all some party favours, and they're in these tiny coffins, and he opens them up and gives every person a gun. You know, just a regular party. So now everyone in the house is pretty freaked out. They've locked the doors so no one can get in or out, and everyone has a gun. This house of spooked people, and they've given them all guns. I suppose that's what America is like at all times. So they've all got guns now, and Nora goes off to her room, and she looks in a suitcase, and there's a human head. She runs downstairs to tell everyone, hey guys, I found a human head. Come with me. And they all go upstairs, like, head's gone. So no head. And everyone's like, Nora, you are in hysterics. You are absolutely flipping out, dude. You need to calm it. And she's like, get out of my room. I'm freaking out, and justifiably so. So they all go out, and she locks herself in her room. She stays there for like most of the rest of the film. Lance goes, and he finds Vincent Price's wife has hanged herself. She is just suspended from the roof, and she's dead. They take her and put her in like a bedroom. He's like, can you give me a moment? I want to be alone with my dead wife. So they all go out. He starts doing like a little speech. He was like, you're too greedy. You're dead now. I can't remember what he was saying. Some pretty like implicating stuff. Like, this dude's wife has just died and he's already like roasting a dead body with some sick insults. The man who's scared of the ghost is just like getting consistently more drunk throughout the movie, even though we like never see him drink anything. The woman who doesn't do anything in the film drinks more than him, and he is just like, he is off his head like for the whole film. They all meet up downstairs, apart from Nora, who is like locked in her room because she's been freaking out. And they say, someone has murdered this lady. We should all lock ourselves in our room with our guns and not leave our rooms until morning, when we can get out of the house. A fairly reasonable thing to do. Guy who's scared of ghosts is like, well, if we lock ourselves in our rooms, the ghosts can still get in. Everyone else is like, you're an idiot, we'll just do it anyway. So they lock themselves in a room, and the idea is, if anyone leaves their room, they are guilty and they murdered the lady. So they're all locked in their rooms, and Nora looks out a window, and she sees the lady who just got hanged just sort of floating there, and then a rope, the one that she had round her neck, like comes through the window and like wraps itself all around her, and then it goes out, and she vanishes. Floaty lady, who is obviously a ghost. Like, floaty lady magically wraps a rope around you. Definitely not a regular lady. Nora, who has just had the worst night, is rightfully freaked out. She opens the door and like runs off. She's like, I'm going to the cellar, I'm freaking out. At this point, the doctor guy comes out his room. He goes to see Vincent Price. He's like, Vincent Price, there's some weird stuff going on. We should split up and search the house because Nora has gone missing or something. And he's like, I suppose you're right. And the doctor guy's like, I'll check the upstairs, you go downstairs and like check out the cellar and whatever. Sure thing, let's do that. So Vincent Price goes downstairs. The doctor guy goes into the room where the dead lady's body is, and he's like, hey, it's all good. And the dead lady is not dead. She's alive. She just had a non-fatal hanging, as you do. She's like, hey, can you get this harness off me that I was wearing to float outside Nora's window? They've been pranking everyone. I don't know how they made the rope float through the window and wrap itself around her. A trick of the light or something. People can just do that. So they have been responsible for freaking Nora out, because their plan is Nora's gonna go down to the cellar, and then they just sent Vincent Price down to the cellar. She's really freaked out. When she hears him come in, she's gonna panic and shoot him, and they're gonna run away with the money they inherit from Vincent Price being dead. I don't know why you'd have to do something so like weird and convoluted to like murder your husband, but whatever floats your boat. If you want to be like really dramatic and have a murder ghost party to kill your husband, who am I to judge? So he goes down to the cellar, Nora's there, Nora shoots him as planned, and he looks like he's dead. He's laying on the floor. Nora's like, oh, I just shot that dude, and she starts screaming and runs out. She's still having just the worst night. The doctor dude, who just explained his evil plan, comes down to the cellar. Time to get rid of the body in the old vat of acid. And he starts dragging him, and we cut away. Wife, who appeared to be dead, comes down to the cellar. Where's the doctor, who I'm going to run away with? She takes a look in the vat of acid, and you see the top of a skeleton, and the skeleton just like rises out of the acid, and it starts talking with Vincent Price's voice, and he's like, why did you murder me? It's me, Skeleton Vincent Price. It starts chasing her about the room and like pushing her. You shouldn't have murdered me, my wife. And it like chases her around the room until she's like stood next to the vat of acid, and the skeleton comes, pushes her in. Just a ghostly floating skeleton that'll push you in the acid. So she's dead, and then Vincent Price comes out of a secret compartment in the wall, and he's got this ridiculous like puppet mechanism that he's using to control the skeleton, because he didn't get shot. Everyone else who's still alive comes downstairs, and he's like, oh, I better explain my evil plan. So he found out about the doctor and his wife's evil plan to murder him on their spooky house party. So he hijacked the evil plan as a way to kill his wife and her boyfriend. He loaded all the guns with blanks, so when he got shot by Nora, he didn't die because he didn't actually get shot, he just pretended to be dead. When the doctor came down to put him in the acid, he like got up and fought him and put him in the acid, so now he's dead. And then he's just like, well, you guys can't judge me, I'm off, and he just walks past them all. Like, this guy just murdered 2 people. Like, any of these people could phone the police. The question is, when did he know that she was planning this? And how did he work it all out? It's a pretty convoluted plan. and he seemed to know every exact step of it. But also, what was her plan? She gets Nora to shoot him, but her plan was way more implausible than his. She tells her husband, hey, I want to host a party in a haunted house. I want to invite 5 random people that I don't know. Can we do that? And he's just like, yeah, sure. And then she's like, I want to give everyone a gun, so when they get freaked out, they can shoot each other. And he's still like, yep, this is fine. One thing I really like is how they just like, they have the ghostly things happening, and then they just like don't explain how they're part of the plan. They're in the cellar and she sees the spooky caretaker lady doing this. And then they explain like, oh, she's just the caretaker. Like, she just does this on the regular, like stands in the basement looking spooky and then floats out the room. At various times in the movie, things just like fall, like the chandelier falls, doors slam on their own, there is a spooky hollow wall that they don't explain. The movie's not even bad, like I actually quite liked it, but it's so weird. Were the 50s just like this? Back in the 50s we had like haunted parties all the time, and everyone had a gun, and all the caretakers were like that. So they explain that the doors are locked, and all the windows have bars in, so no one can get in or out of the house. So then how did the wife float outside Nora's window if she couldn't get out of the house? How did she like lasso her through the barred window with her hanging rope? Honestly, the movie's so weird, and I highly recommend it. Yeah, it's in the public domain, so you can find it really easily. It's one of those movies that is like, it's got a lot of twists, so you don't know where it's going, but it has too many twists so that it no longer makes sense. Even after they explain like all the stuff that's been going on, the guy who's scared of ghosts is still like, well now there's 2 more ghosts in the house. Dude, they just explained literally everything that happened. I don't think there were any ghosts involved. And like even at the end, I was waiting for the bit where they come in and they're like, no, the house is actually haunted. The camera like turns and there's just like a creepy spectre in the corner or something, and the movie ends. But like, no, there's just no ghosts. There's no ghosts. The house isn't even haunted. Just a house where 9 murders have taken place. A regular house to have a party in. Borat voice. My wife, who shouldn't have murdered me. That's really bad. Don't put that in the video.